The alien moon was barren, a wasteland of jagged rocks and acidic winds that corroded everything they touched. To any observer, it seemed uninhabited, devoid of purpose or life. But Sergeant Davis knew better. The human soldier crept through the narrow ravines, his rifle scanning for threats. His platoon had been ambushed 3 clicks back, leaving him the sole survivor. The alien enemy, a reptilian species called the Krax'thar, were notorious for their ambush tactics and brutality. He'd heard whispers about their disdain for their weak, how they abandoned the infirm and elderly like trash. Survival of the fittest, Davis muttered to himself. It wasn't an alien concept to humans, but it wasn't a creed they lived by anymore. Not in the Coalition. He stopped short as his helmet's sensors picked up movement. At the edge of the ravine sat a figure, hunched and cloaked in a tattered shawl. The wind tugged at the fabric, revealing mottled, scaled skin and bony hands. It was Krax'thar. Davis gritted his teeth, raising his rifle. The Krax'thar had killed his comrades. He wouldn't hesitate to take one of them down. But as the figure turned its head, he hesitated. Her eyes, sunken and milky, were filled not with malice, but with exhaustion. Her body trembled under the shawl, the once formidable physique of her kind reduced to little more than skin stretched over bones. She wasn't a threat. She was a castaway. Davis lowered his weapon, but didn't relax. "You're alive," he said through his helmet speaker. The alien blinked slowly, then croaked something in her guttural tongue. The translator in his suit struggled, but after a moment it spoke. "I am nothing. Leave me." Davis frowned. He wasn't fluent in Krax'thar cultural norms, but he knew enough to understand what this was. She had been abandoned, left here to die as her kind's brutal customs dictated. "No one's nothing," he muttered, kneeling cautiously a few meters away. "What's your name?" She didn't respond. Instead, her head drooped, and she coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made him wince. "You're injured. Not your concern. I am worthless." Davis removed his helmet, letting the acidic wind sting his skin for a moment before placing a rebreather over his mouth. He wanted her to see his face, to understand he wasn't a machine or a faceless enemy. "You're alive," he said firmly. "That's not worthless." The alien's gaze shifted slightly, her cloudy eyes narrowing. "You pity me? A Krax'thar elder? Foolish human." "I don't pity you," Davis replied. "But I'm not leaving you here either." Her rasping laugh was bitter. "You should. My own kind did. Do you think your kindness means anything to me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pack and pulled out a water pouch and a ration bar. He tossed them onto the ground between them. She hesitated, then snatched the water pouch with surprising speed, gulping it down. The ration bar followed shortly after. "Why?" she demanded after a long silence. Davis shrugged. "We don't leave people behind. It's just not how we do things." Her expression didn't soften, but something in her posture shifted. "You are strange creatures, humans?" "Yeah, we get that a lot." He glanced at the horizon, where the orange sun was dipping lower, casting long shadows. "We need to move. This place gets colder at night, and I don't think you're in any shape to survive that." "Leave me," she repeated, though her voice lacked conviction. "Not happening." She glared at him, but when he extended his hand, she didn't swat it away. With great effort, she allowed him to help her to her feet. For hours, they trudged through the hostile terrain. Davis supported her as much as he could, even as exhaustion gnawed at his own strength. She muttered insults and complaints, but he ignored them, focusing instead on the sound of his footsteps and the faint hum of his suit's systems. By the time they reached the extraction point, the horizon was streaked with pink and purple, and the Coalition dropship was descending. As the medics approached, the Krax'thar elder stopped and turned to Davis. "You risked much for one you own nothing." "Why?" He smiled faintly. Because no one's worthless. Not to me. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she touched her bony fingers to her chest, a Krax'thar gesture of respect. Perhaps your kind is not as weak as we believed. The medics took her aboard, and Davis followed, collapsing into a seat as the dropship lifted off. He didn't know what would happen to her once they reached the base, but for now, she was alive. And that was enough.